Splatoon! This year's Summer Smash hit is so adored by the masses that you'd think by now there'd be nothing to say about it. Right now, there are hundreds of thousands of players online, joyfully covering their territory and the other team in their own ink. But these Squid Kid warriors are all missing one thing: that these harmless turf wars of today are simply overshadowing the dark history of this world. A story of how the world we know today ended and the reign of the squids began, and how one time-traveling cat is linked to it all. Join me now as we examine the story they're not telling you in Splatoon. We begin our tale 12,000 years before Inkopolis with a young man. This man sees the fate of his world, and as sea levels rise and the world's leaders do nothing to prevent their own extinction, he makes one final decision. Deciding to protect the one he loves most, this man seals Judd, his beloved cat, in a cryogenic chamber. A chamber set to not open for another 10,000 years. Shortly after this event, the cataclysm he feared happens, and he, as well as all of the land creatures besides Judd, perish under the waves. With the book on human society closed for good, the land goes uninhabited for a time. This is until the ancient squids of the oceans, in a landmark event, haul their bodies onto the abandoned land and begin to form a society. This moment would go on to be known as the start of the mollusk era. Many creatures of the sea, tempted by the success of the squids, also leave their own homes, including jellyfish, sea urchins, anemones, shrimp, and horseshoe crabs. However, the most significant of these were the mighty Octarians. Over the course of the next 10,000 years, these races began to develop, growing in intelligence and stature, with some creatures, like the squids and the Octarians, able to assume humanoid-like forms. While the squids, who are now known as Inklings, settle the land with the other creatures, the Octarians seclude themselves underground, forming a system of caves which are connected by a network of transport devices called kettles. All of these races are able to power their societies due to their usage of a rare creature called the Zapfish, and as time goes on, these creatures become more guarded and valuable. With life flourishing on land again, the infamous Judd the Cat is awoken from his cryogenic sleep, where he quickly intertwines himself into the Inkling society, becoming a judge for the Inkling sport of turf war, a job which he still continues today, 2,000 years later. However, Judd's most iconic moment in history came in an event Inkling society is still reeling from today. Over the previous thousands of years, as sea life became accustomed and then reliant on living on the land, the various creatures, as well as the Inklings and Octarians, got along quite well. However, as sea levels continued to rise and territory became more scarce, the Octarians, whose society had been less successful than the Inklings, began to see that they would have no other way to expand than to take the land which the Inklings held. In a sudden attack, the Octarians with their great octo-weapons invaded the Inkling land, and in these early days of the war they dominated the opposition. The Inklings, who were used to peace and relaxation, were simply not prepared or organized enough to repel the invaders. The Octarian forces eventually stormed the Inklings' central stronghold. However, in a twist of fate, their entire attack, which would have captured the city and ensured their victory, was blunted by the accidental unplugging of the extension cords which powered their war machines. After this day, the tide of the war turned, and in the years following, many legendary squadrons were formed, including the renowned Squidbeak Splatoon, consisting of Captain Cuttlefish, Moses Schellendorf, and of course, Judd the Cat. Man, who would have known that this flag-waving cat would turn out to be the ultimate badass of the Splatoon world? Anyway, after many years of conflict, the Great War was ended with victory for the Inklings. With peace restored, the Inklings were able to return to their way of life, going back to the fashion spotting and playful battling that they know and love. But meanwhile, there's one man, the legendary hero and commander of the Squidbeak Splatoon, who keeps an eye on Octo Valley, awaiting the eventual return of the nefarious Octos and their evil king. If ever the Octarians decide to come back, he will be ready to lead the Inklings to victory yet again. Oh, and there's also Judd the Cat, but he's pretty much up for anything.